Okay, Billie Jean King is with us, and being a tennis player, I don't know why I laugh before I say the words, I have certain people whose tennis games I truly admire. Billie Jean King is one of those great competitors. If she were in any sport, she would be the fiery center on a basketball team. If she were playing softball, I see her as the catcher, sparking the team on to victory, whatever. But she happens to be one of the most remarkable athletes in this century. She's the first female athlete in any sport to earn more than $100,000 in a single year. She has been ranked #1 in the world of tennis 4 times, 1966 to 68, and other times like that. She holds a record 20 Wimbledon titles, and she has made comebacks from some physical setbacks, including knee operations, and now Billie Jean King is ranked 11th in the world, which is good. It's much higher than me. I'm ranked 2 millionth.
Do you have a ranking?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I gave myself the 2 millionth.
Well, you don't play enough.
Well, I guess that's it. Well, how are you feeling?
I feel great. Yeah? And I'm really excited about coming to New York, playing at the Garden.
You're going to be in the Garden in the Virginia Slims tournament?
Right, the Virginia Slims Championships of New York.
New York champion?
Yes.
When is that? That's
March 23rd to the 27th.
And do you like playing the Garden? Do you get a special?
Oh, I do.
I mean, you were there with the ill-fated New York professional tennis team for a while?
New York Apples.
Yep.
I love playing there. I love New York. Certain players cannot handle New York.
What happens when you come into New York? Why is that?
Well, you've got to be the kind of person that can relate to energy and people who really get involved in the match and who are demonstrative. And New Yorkers are. I mean, they're going to let you know exactly where you stand. They're going to boo you if they don't like you. They're going to love you if they love you, and they're going to tell you. And they're very noisy. And if you're the type of player who
gets rattled by the noise,
yeah.
You don't get rattled by it.
I'll feed off of it, the energy. And I just absolutely love New York. I've always loved New York. And
how is your tennis now?
My tennis this year is pretty good.
37 years old now?
37. Thank you so much.
39?
39.
39 years old.
I'll be 40 in November.
Which, let's face it, that's mature.
It's very mature. It's called a veteran, which I hate that word.
You're a veteran. You look great, and obviously, if you're ranked #11th, you're playing very well. But how do you feel about your tennis game now and your plans for the next few years?
Well, I'm only planning through the next 6 months. Right now, this year, I've been playing very well, much better than even last year. And these computer rankings reflect what you've done over the last 12 months. And my ranking's actually starting to go up. A couple weeks ago, it was 14. And what I plan to do is play in some of the Virginia Slims tournaments this year. I'm also playing in some over 30s tournaments, which I think they should be over 35 if I'm 39. And I'll be playing team tennis in July. And after July, I will reevaluate what I want to do. But right now, I'd like to do well here in New York. I'd like to win it. I think I'm good enough to win it.
God, I would love to see you win
I'd love it. Ooh, New York, I love it.
I think only the family and friends of the competitors would be the people, women you're playing against, would be rooting against you here in New York.
People have been great to me in New York.
Yeah, well, they love you here. What about the kind of people you're playing against these days? Seems like tennis is involving younger and younger and younger players, right?
Especially in women's tennis.
Yeah, in women's tennis. You're playing 14 and 15-year-olds sometimes, aren't you?
This is true, but still the top 2 players are Chris Evert-Lloyd and Martina Navratilova. Martina really she's really the #1 player right at the moment. And she's 26 or 7, and Chris is 28 now. And their rivalry this year for the #1 spot is very keen. I mean, there's a lot of interest. They both are at the top of their games.
Yes.
We'll see how they do. But I think some of the players that people might like watching that are young is the Catherine Rinaldi. She's 15. She's one of those younger ones we're talking about. Bettina Bunge, I think, is a very exciting player. She's a teenager. And some of the emotional ones that they might like watching playing here would be like Virginia Ruzic from Romania.
All those Romanians are crazy on the tennis court. I mean, they really get fired up.
Oh, she's exactly the same way. I mean, Ely goes a little crazy in Stasi, but she's very energetic. And then Pam Shriver, I think, is fun to watch, and she's very emotional. I mean, you know exactly where she stands. I mean, she gets so involved. She starts yelling at the crowd or whatever. So those are some of the players that I think that people enjoy.
Let's just talk about those top 2 you mentioned, right? They are, again,
Martina Navratilova is #1 without any question of a doubt, and Chris Evert-Lloyd. Chris won the U.S. Open and the Australian. She'd never won the Australian. until last
And
December.
Chris plays basically a very controlled back service, baseline
right.
game.
I see why you're number 200 million. That's okay.
And Martina is really rushing the net.
Right.
And more the style that you play.
Right, very aggressive player.
Very aggressive player. All things equal on any given day, both playing at top form. Isn't the aggressive player, doesn't the aggressive net rushing player really have the edge on
a given moment, maybe, but consistency-wise, the baseliner will always have a great record for consistency, like the same way Chris does. A lot of it has to do with the surface. We'll be playing on Sporties here at the Virginia Slims tournament here in New York, so it's fast. And
surface.
Martina loves playing on Sporties. She owns the indoor circuit, but last year in New York, in a very big tournament here, she lost to Sylvia Hanukkah in the final. So. Sometimes, and she hasn't won the U.S. Open in New York. So New York, in a way, for Martina, could be a little bit of a jinx, and I'm sure in her mind, she wants to get over that by winning this tournament.
Were you surprised that Borg retired? I mean, here's a man who wrote a new record book at Wimbledon, who has got to be considered one of the greatest of all male players, and who steps away at what age? 28?
6, I think.
26 years old, retires from tennis.
I can understand it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he's one of the new era of players that they've had so much so quickly. I think he's afraid about still staying number one. And every player who's been number one goes through that.
Yeah, and then they come back a couple years later.
Because they know how much, then they realize how much they love to play.
And they have to work a little harder.
Work harder, but he's a very hard worker. With his style of play, and it depends on his mobility. But I think it's good that he's retired, because deep down, even though he's taking vacations, every day you wake up, you say, well, I've got to work out today. I've either got to hit tennis balls, maybe run for an hour or two. And now he can honestly wake up in the morning and say, I don't have to ever pick up a racket again. However, because of that fact, he'll probably maybe get interested again and realize he still may be able to be number one or number two or number three. Doesn't really matter as long as he's out there entertaining people.
Is there a point, even though he's so young at age 26, is there a point that if you just step away from it for so long, no matter what happens, you can't get it back? I don't know.
If you stay away too long, probably. But he needs to get away and not have that pressure of having to practice. Even when we take weeks off, you actually end up training harder. Or
when
let's say
supposed to be on vacation.
Right. Or if you take even a week off, you end up running every day.
Great parallel would be with a violinist or anyone who has any great technical skill, who really must, even Christmas morning.
You lose your skill.
Those violinists are out there practicing.
You lose it. Even one day, taking a day off, you feel it. 2 days, 3 days, everybody else notices it.
That's why I'm afraid to get back in the car and play in summertime. We'll be back and continue with Billie Jean King right after this. Okay, Billie Jean King continues with us. We have David Cassidy later in the program. We want to remind you about the Virginia Slims Championships of New York, March 23rd through the 27th. That's $350,000. It's a lot of money.
It is. The winner makes $80,000.
$80,000. I mean, but that's like a drop in the bucket compared to the endorsements, right?
That's true. But 80,000. Well, I grew up in the years when we didn't make anything. So
I know you were.
So to me, I just start kind of vibrating when I look at 80,000.
You are really one of very few survivors of the old days when there was virtually no money at all
no money
for female players.
Well, we started making.
And one of the women who really made it change.
Well, we started making money in 1971 when the Virginia Slims people basically took a chance with us, and it worked.
That's 12 years.
It worked. Speaking of Virginia Slims, I got this great
You're either going to put that on or hand it to me.
Oh, good. I want you to. Well, it fit. I want to make sure it fits. It'll fit.
I tell you,
you're so broad-shouldered now. You've been working out so much with weights.
Unless it's extra large.
He's so
it's
muscular.
large, but I think that we can.
That's great.
No, it's nice. Thank you. I like that very much. I have a T-shirt collection, as a matter of fact.
You do? Well,
it's about the only thing that I collect. T-shirts.
And that's great.
I've got trunks filled with T-shirts. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with them. Yep. I wear them, but I get 1 or 2 T-shirts a week. I've been doing this show 8 years. Now you can figure how many T-shirts have been given to me on or off the air.
Wow.
That's a lot of T-shirts.
Well, when you go play a pro-am.
No, I wear tennis clothes.
Wear your Virginia Slims T-shirt sometimes. Just, after you perspire.
Invite me sometime. If you invited me to play tennis in any situation to raise money for anything, I would work my little buns off to be ready for that.
You would?
I would work very hard.
Okay.
That's the kind of incentive
You're in trouble now.
to get back. Invite me sometime.
All
Billie Jean, a couple things I want to talk about. over the period of time that you've seen tennis, it's changed enormously. I mean, the colors that people wear on the courts, the way the crowds react, it's changed gigantically. Where sportsmanship used to prevail, sometimes we are now seeing showmanship prevail, meaning that there are certain characters, male and female, mostly the men, I think, on the court, who work the crowd, do things that were not thought of 15 years ago. How do you respond in general to the overall change?
I actually think a lot of the older players work the crowds more because, let's take Pancho Gonzalez, for instance.
I saw Pancho play at the end of his career.
Well, he worked the crowd great. He was a real showman. I only wish he were playing today because I think people would respond to him in a good way, sometimes controversial way, because he's real temperamental. He's the kind of guy who could walk out in the stands, punch somebody out, come back down an ace, serve an ace.
Yeah.
And I go, how can anyone concentrate like that? I don't think you were exposed to those players because we didn't have the television audience.
Television really shows
We didn't have it, but it's always been there. But now we're able to see it because of the big money and the players.
What about some of the players who really get involved in the yelling and the screaming to the umpire? I'm not looking for you to give me a certain answer. I'm just curious what you think about this. You've had your troubles with referees.
Well, I'm terrible. Yeah, I was yelling last week.
What good does it do to yell and scream? They never change the call, do they?
No, they never do. Just boiling point. Just go crazy, and you want to explain yourself and express yourself and tell them that sometimes they don't know the rules. That's what irritates me.
Is that really true, though? I mean,
sometimes they don't know, and then
they don't know the rules.
Well, if you think you know the rule better than they do, I mean, I'm better to just get it out and get it over with and get back. Because sometimes when I try to be a good sport and keep it in, I get lockjaw. I can't breathe. You know, I start.
What about sportsmanship? Suppose you're playing against Billie Jean. I mean, Chris. Okay. Otherwise, you're hitting against the wall. You're playing against Chris. Okay. You've gotten a bad call down the line. You've got another one. You just really blew it all out.
Going crazy.
Going crazy. Now you hit a ball, and you see her, your opponent, complaining this, and you think that your opponent is right. Would you walk over and say, "She's right"?
Yes, I've done that.
You have done that?
Oh, on many occasions. Or if I'm playing Chris, she gives me the high sign whether she thought it was in or out, even though we may not, probably wouldn't change the call, but she goes, or we'll be changing sides and she'll go, "Sorry, Billie," or I'll go, "Chris, your shot was good." I mean, what am I going to do? We always say, there's nothing you can do.
You can't change it.
We can't change it.
One way or the other, whether it's for or against you.
Certain players that you get along well with will tell you. And Chris and I would, because I guess I've known her since she was 15, and we've always gotten along real well.
You do get along? That's the other thing. It's so difficult. I don't know whether it would be ego or what, but I think people find it difficult to think that someone who comes along and unseats you, literally, you were the queen of tennis, and then she came along and she was the next one who really dominated for a while, that you can get along with someone that you have such to compete with. But
I think we can relate to each other's position. We've both been #1. We've both talked about it. We know what it is to be down, up, everything. And I think there's not too many people in the world you can talk to that really have lived it. And I think that's the difference, where Chris and I can sit down and talk about it, because we have. We've talked about it, even like, you know, doing interviews, for instance, how to handle certain things. Or she'll say, you know, "God, how did it feel the first year when you weren't #1?" She said, and I said, "Well, you should know. You're the one that beat me." And she'd go, "Well, you know, it's difficult, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah, but you know, she's the next generation, and the next generation will take over from her. And it's something that everybody lives through, and you learn to cope with it, and you learn that you still live, and you're lucky. You're one of the lucky ones to have been #1 for even one moment of your lifetime."
What will prevent you, I mean, you're playing very good tennis now, but what will prevent you from being a figure, a pathetic figure of a champion? Now, I mean that in the sense that Muhammad Ali truly did become that in his career. A great, respected champion who influenced the sport. You are a great, respected champion who influenced the sport. You're 39 years old. You're playing well. What will prevent you from making the mistake of holding on too long?
Well, I think I've gone through times where I'm pretty pathetic, especially after knee operations.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised. The public,
people don't understand.
They don't know that.
You feel like taking a bull. Look, I'm recovering from a knee operation now. That's why I missed that volley shot.
Exactly. I'm sorry I didn't reach that ball, but I'm not running very well yet. No. So people don't understand that. I think you just have to decide for yourself. And I still think if Muhammad Ali still wanted to fight, it hurts me to see him. But what hurts me more than anything else is he doesn't get in shape anymore.
Well, in a way it was his fault.
He didn't pay the price. He didn't pay the price.
You're right about that.
And that's what bothers me. I don't care, though, if he's happy. That's what more important.
Right.
I think he had to be miserable not being in shape, though.
Yeah.
And I still don't care what happens to him the rest of his life, what he did for boxing.
No question. I loved him. He was one of my big
But
favorites.
I think now that we have older tournaments to play in, the older players are very fortunate. Like we have legend tournaments we can play, and the women this year for the first year have them. So I'm able to keep playing in a competitive situation that's relatively good for me.
Do you do much coaching yourself?
No, a lot of people ask me to coach.
Do you think you would like to?
I don't know. I know that whatever I do with my life will be in motivation. That's what I like the most.
In motivation, you mean?
I don't know. I don't know how exactly, but I've thought about it a long time. I'd really want to take piano lessons. In traveling, I can't carry a piano on my back, so that's prevented me from doing a lot of things I want. It'd be nice to wake up to no alarm and just read books for a while.
That's right.
And not have to go out and physically kill myself every day.
But you know, I don't think that you would enjoy. This is just total projection, because I've gone through periods where I'm in very good shape and not in good shape.
Me too.
I don't think you would enjoy the physical feeling of not being in good shape. I don't mean razor sharp shape, tournament level, but just feeling good about your body, you know? I've
been in terrible shape, and you're right, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
I get fat, I'm bloated, I kind of lollygag around.
You wake up in the morning sort of feeling like a beached whale.
Yeah, I feel like a whale. Just puffy cheeks, I got a big fat face anyway, and just walking around. And I can't think well either. My mind just gets very slow and lethargic, just the way my body is. So for me, you're right, I'm going to have to stay in some kind of decent shape. Yeah. But I'm talking about, you're right, that razor edge is the difficult part, though.
Yeah.
That's an extra effort every day you wake up. And all of us wake up certain days when we say, hey, I don't want to go to the office today. I don't want to work today. But an athlete has to.
Force yourself. And that's the price you pay.
Yeah,
and you get out of it what you pay.
Hey, we get a great return on our investment if we have the ability.
So we're going to see you at Madison Square Garden, which will be good. Again, the date is
23rd to the 27th of March.
23rd to the 27th. Who's your opening round draw? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. They haven't done the draw.
Who would you like it to be?
I don't care. Just don't forget to put me in the draw. That's all I've ever told a tournament. I don't care if I'm seated. Just don't forget me, because that's happened to players before.
Really?
Yes.
And what happens then?
They don't get to play. It's happened at Wimbledon. They didn't get their entry blank or whatever entry.
I mean, they just forgot.
Yeah. For the year, you're out of luck. So just don't forget me.
Don't forget. Okay.
Right.
Billie Jean King, it's great to see you.
It's nice seeing you again,
I wish
Bill.
you the best.
Thanks,
really
Bill.
the best. We'll be back right after this.